Welcome to Let Freedom Ring. As always, we got security here to make sure we're keeping Soapy Pre-Op out of the studio. I do believe I'm going to see him next week at my brother's wedding. I know he's going to be there. There's a lot of tension going into that. We're not really sure what's going to happen. But again, if you like what you're watching, make sure to like, share, and most of all, subscribe. But my guest this week, from the producer of the French Canadian Legacy podcast, Mike Campbell. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I remember when you were just dreaming up this idea at the Budweiser Beer Garden down the street, and you've been doing an amazing job, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mike. Yeah, it was something I definitely been talking about, and one day you only live once. Got to go for it.
Got to go for it.
But let's get to know you, Mike. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up, I spent my first few years in Keene, New Hampshire, and then I moved up to Laconia, which is in central New Hampshire on the lake, and I went to school there, went to college in northern Vermont, the less cool side of Vermont, not the Burlington side, the Northeast Kingdom. Not that the Northeast Kingdom, I'm not throwing shade at you, but it's less known, about 30 miles from the Derby line, so it was closer to go to Boston, or closer to go to Montreal than Boston, so a lot of Expos games, because I went to school when they were still there. And then now I live in Hudson with my wife and my 6-year-old son, and I'm a stay-at-home dad.
Awesome. In Laconia, was Bike Week a big thing when you were growing up?
Yeah, Bike Week is a heck of a thing. Yeah, there was fights there. I worked at Fun Spot when there was a Hells Angels State Troopers fight going on, and so we barricade ourselves inside. Bike Week was very popular. We would take the train in, because you could take a train from Meredith into the Weirs and experience all that is Bike Week.
Yeah, there was one time I forgot. I was hiking in the Whites, stopped in the area. I don't think I was fully in Laconia, and it was a big mistake.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like, I wanted to just grab some food, and that was it. Nope, I was in traffic for a while. Never got food that day.
Yeah, just people lined up in their lawn chairs. I was just down the streets, just watching all the bikes going.
No, and it's a big thing for the economy of Laconia.
Yeah.
Now, what are 3 things that everybody should know about you?
Well, I'm a stay-at-home dad, which I think is pretty cool. I was lucky enough. I was in part-time jobs in schools and bookstores, and then my son came along, and we were weighing the cost of daycare, which is an insane amount, and me just staying home and taking care of him and watching him grow, which has been pretty interesting. I'll plug the producer of the French Canadian Legacy podcast. You've had our host Jesse on multiple times. He's a very popular freedom ringer, I believe. So I edit all the shows and do all the social media for that, fclpodcast.com, or you can go facebook.com/fclpodcast. And we actually just launched, have you ever heard of geocaching, Dan?
I have not.
So it's like an online, so you post the coordinates online, but it's like a real world scavenger hunt. People hide things in everyday places. You'll probably pass a bunch every day on your way to work, go to the grocery store, and you look online and you can hide these little caches that people go and find and sign, basically. So we put one together to highlight the French Canadian legacy. There's a thing called the Franco route. You can go to francoroute.com, and it's in Lewiston, Auburn, Biddeford, both in Maine, Manchester, New Hampshire, Lowell, Massachusetts, and Woonsocket, Rhode Island. So we hid 5 caches in each of those towns, that in 5 important locations to the current story of French Canadians in those locations and the history. Nice. So you can go to geocaching.com. It's a free to sign up. Search the New England Franco Route Geotour, and you will. It's perfect time now, summer. Go outside. If you're still a little cautious, you can stay away from people. It's no one's really hoarding these locations. You got to be sneaky. You don't want those normal public, they call them muggles, to see you getting the caches and stuff. So I've been working. Jesse does all the hard work.
Now, Jesse, that's promoting the show. If you take notes.
Jesse came on and said, "I do the hard work." I think talking to the guests, coming up with the questions, keeping them engaged. I've got the easy job, just sitting here. You came up with the topics. But the French Canadian Legacy, and we also have a Patreon if you want to support us for as little as $2 a month. Jesse's up in Quebec. You live on location. You interviewed him. He does video journals almost every day. We've got over 60 videos of him talking French. You can see how he's progressing. So patreon.com/FCL podcast. And my third point, which kind of ties into your next question, what does it mean to be an American?
Yes.
So I recently became a member of the Hudson School Board.
Oh, that's right.
I ran my first political campaign, you can say. And I always think if you want to do change, you got to work on the local level. Like the big voter turnouts are for presidential elections, for U.S. Senate, U.S. House.
That's what gets people fired up.
Yes, but the most change comes at the local level, and you see very low turnout for the local elections if there's no big ticket candidates on the ballot. So I'm not saying that's how I snuck in and got on the board, but it was a low turnout. But yeah, so I am a member of the school board because I would like to affect positive change since I'm seeing my son go through it. He's going into first grade in the fall.
Oh, nice.
So that was a few things about me.
Yeah, no, those are great. And I totally agree with you, and I'm guilty of it myself. My state government's going to affect my day-to-day more than the federal government is. And half the time I'm just voting based on the party I lean towards.
The little icons in the corner. But what's good about most local city elections or town elections, they don't always have the D and the R next to them. So when I ran for school board, it didn't say, spoiler, I lean Democratic. So it didn't have the D next to me. So, they have candidates night. Most local towns have candidates night. So you can get to know the candidates. They give a little speech. And I had a lot of people reaching out to me and saying, I would never vote for a Democrat, but you seem okay, so I'm going to vote for you. But
I could see that being said in Hudson.
Yeah.
I definitely could see that being said.
Yep.
And sticking with the theme of the show, which is one of the most important questions we ask here, what does it mean to you to be an American?
I think a big thing is that voting and being part of your community. We're lucky to live in this, I think, is an amazing country. Not perfect. I won't say it's a perfect country, but it is one of the best, top 3, of course. But if you want change, you can't just think about it. You can't just complain about it. You got to go out and try to make it done. And it's as easy as just putting your name on a ballot and say, hey, I'm going to give it a shot. I didn't think I'd stand a chance to get onto the school board. And then I actually did, and it's terrifying, but it's hopefully going to be rewarding in the long run, helping out, trying to make the change that I believe in and making the country, or my little part of it, as wonderful as I can.
I like that answer. You're right, because you can control what you can control.
Yep.
And if you're making an impact in your own community, well, that's pretty big to being an American, in my opinion, too. So I totally agree with that. I respect a lot that you've gone out for that because it takes guts to do it. So let's get into some current events. One big one, because we're both wrestling fans. We're both local wrestling fans, too. Chaotic Wrestling came out with a new championship belt. They have now retired the women's title. This was big. This is just a title that's never existed before. The Pan-Optic Championship, where it is a title where anybody can go for it as long as they are, I guess, believe in the values of the LGBTQT community. Any thoughts on that? I mean, it's stirring up a lot of stuff on Facebook.
I can
on
imagine.
Both sides.
I haven't been following the comments. I read the posts.
Yeah.
I think it's great. During the pandemic, I haven't been following Chaotic as much. I know they've had a couple of live events, but they've also done a lot on Twitch.
Yes.
Which I think was really cool. So I watched some of those matches on Twitch. But they've had Davian, is it? Davian fighting for the overall championship, right? So it's not like this is out of the ballpark. It just seems like it's a genderless belt that anyone can compete for, and if they're already dabbling in that, why not go all the way? I don't know if they needed to retire a belt or make it its own belt.
Yeah, because I don't know if I don't know if like the lineage of it is going to go back.
Yeah, that's always a weird thing when you switch belts, which we're very used to as wrestling fans. But I think it'll be interesting. They've already been leaning that way. So why not give this a chance?
Yeah, I think it's great for the community. But I get both sides of it because, for me personally, I feel like we have so much now where a lot of, in my day-to-day, I don't see the discrimination against that community at all. If this was 10 years ago, I would have been like, that's the gutsiest thing I've ever seen in my life. Now it's kind of like, okay.
It just makes sense.
Yeah, it's like, so I think, people will start to like it. There's obviously going to be backlash on it. And you know what, though? It's just a belt basically saying anybody that really can go for it.
And, I mean...
like any of their titles at this point.
I don't mean to be negative, but wrestling is ridiculous.
Yes.
Why not try to include as many people as you can to, we've been enjoying it for the majority of our lives, and I think it's something that's really fun. So I'd like to see as many people included as possible. If this brings new people in, to see, and especially at the local level, like I was saying, yes, there's the national, but the local levels are also important.
Well, I think it's right. I mean,
and Chaotic's fantastic.
The great promotion, and at the end of the day, it's got people talking. It's got people eyes on it. I mean, I saw it shared on wrestling pages that's never talked about chaotic wrestling before. So, I think eventually, you're going to have some people are going to be, one way or the other on it. It'll probably just kind of fall into line with everything else. Mm-hmm. And,
who knows, in 2 years, it could have been forgotten and switched back.
Yeah, who knows?
You never know.
But the belt does look pretty cool.
Yeah, it did look very cool. If you haven't, look up pictures. And Chaotic, where stars are born, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at the current rosters. I mean, there are a lot of people that have gone through there. So I just thought that was interesting. Something that I don't think any company has ever done before in wrestling. I know there's a transgender heavyweight championship. This is obviously different than that. So, I say big ups to Chase Del Monte for having the guts to try something different. Yeah. But that's also going to get us into, I know there's two things. So far, how do you feel that Joe Biden's doing?
So I voted for Joe.
Yeah.
He wasn't my first choice. He wasn't my second choice. I don't know if he was my third choice. Yeah. But I voted for him. He's doing about as well as to be expected. He's gone back on some things, like the student debt forgiveness. But like we've experienced in the past since President Obama through President Trump, it's the House and the Senate, the red and the blues hate each other, and there's no give in the middle. A lot of the build-up to Joe would be that he can cross party lines. He's worked with Republicans when he was in the Senate. I don't know. I think it'll still take a little bit of time to get them to be friendly. Yeah. If they were ever friendly to begin with. But, I mean, he's fine.
Yeah, I do feel like the past president, we've always been a divided country. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. The president before used that to his advantage. Divide and conquer. Mm-hmm. The more I can divide. So I think at this point, if you are a Trump supporter, you ain't going to support anything Biden does because you feel like your guy never got supported. Did he do things to lead to that? Sure. That demographic doesn't seem to want to ever hold him accountable. So I just feel like we're in this thing where it's like they're jumping on any little thing that they can find.
That's how, even with President Obama, they jumped on anything they could find. President Trump, they jumped on anything they can find. I feel like this is how we're going to be for... I'm hoping, even with President Bush, I remember because I worked on the campaign for Al Gore, just local level again. But it was pretty split like there too. But again, part of it's probably social media. You didn't hear from everybody as much. Here you can just go on and see how split it is. I hope we at least can find some common ground to get stuff done. Mm-hmm. But we will see.
Social media does, for everything I love about it. Because I do love it. I try to stay out of the politics of it these days. But you see some ridiculous. You get to hear everybody's take, and some of them are just purely insane on both sides. So it does give everybody a voice in a way that's great. In a way, it's like you learn some things about people.
Should everyone? But he's. I hope him the best. I hope he gets a lot done. I hope we can figure out how to work together. But fingers crossed.
Yeah. All right, let's get to some fan questions because you got quite a few here. First one from Patrick Lacroix. Am I saying that right?
Patrick Lacroix.
Lacroix, is that how he's? Okay, I'm sorry.
It's either or.
First time asking a question on the show. The people demand to hear why your secret life as a NASCAR fan.
Well, Patrick is the French Canadian Legacy's resident NASCAR fan.
Got it.
Recently, I've dipped my toe into sports gambling now that it's legal in New Hampshire with the DraftKings app. And every now and then they have these things called odds boosts. So at random times in the weekend, I'll say, "Hey, Patrick, how does this look? Can I win like $5 from this?"
Yeah.
So my love of NASCAR is tied deeply to my degenerate gambling problem.
That makes sense. And I know Laconia is right next to
Loudon. Yeah.
Loudon.
Yeah.
I dated a girl from Loudon in college. And
I had to do the Loudon racetrack was built when I was in like 5th grade.
Okay.
And we would do like our club fundraising events at the NASCAR events and try to like bake sales. And
it sounds like the whole town, the whole city is just everybody works it.
Yeah. I mean, it's huge. Have you ever been to it? Or?
I've passed it, but I've never.
Passed it.
It's not really a NASCAR guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's right there. Like it's hard to miss.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really big for that community.
Next question from Monique Martino. Karen. Oh, I'm sorry, Ken. How does Ken? We say Ken's list?
I don't know.
But anyways,
I would butcher it.
Ken, I'm sorry if I said it wrong. Favorite musical? She wants to know first.
Well, I think you're gonna ask me my top 5s, but my favorite is Rent.
Rent.
Yep,
okay.
From like '96. It was the soundtrack of my high school years. I've seen it a bunch of times. There's a film version of it. There's a recorded live performance of it. It's out there. You can see it. Rent is my favorite musical.
And we'll get to more of those because I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, and I know you've been wanting to talk musicals for years and years on this show. So
I'm not going to lie. When I used to see the commercials of Cats as a child, it scared the hell out of me.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be the bottom of the musical ladder.
I mean, I do like Grease, so so it's not that I don't like any musicals. But funniest FCL story, French Canadian Legacy podcast.
Is that from our favorite host?
This is from Monique still.
Oh, from Monique still.
She actually has another question coming up too. So
funniest. I don't know if I have a funniest story. You sent me that one, and I should have thought about that one more. It's not really. There's no real funny. You were part of this, the Poutine video. We were gonna try to do a Poutine challenge last year, but as everyone knows, last year we just scrapped it and we no longer talk about it. But I was putting together a lot of videos. You cut a lot of promos for the Poutine challenge that will one day happen between Jesse and Monique and you and Timmy. But some of those videos, you guys both reached out to get some cameos. That's on our YouTube channel. We don't have a direct. I think it's like youtube.com/channel/French Canadian Legacy.
We can put I can put the link in the description.
But yeah, maybe I'll send you the link to that video.
Yeah.
But there's some funny stuff in there. That was back and forth between you guys were pretty ridiculous.
That was a good time.
And we were actually hoping to have it in my lawn.
Yeah.
Actual cooking challenge.
I had some judges picked out, but the good thing is the trophy that was purchased does not have a year on it.
So
we don't need to buy a new one.
There we go.
We could do, hopefully this becomes a tradition.
Dreams will come true. Jesse's back in October, right?
I believe so.
That's
is what he said.
Poutine season, basically. Every season is Poutine season.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a bad time for it. So we'll make it happen, Monique. So stay tuned. Well, you're a part of it, so I hope you know.
Hopefully.
Zach Davis wants to know, why don't you like Nico wafers?
So Zach Davis is my neighbor, and last year during COVID, we were all hanging out, and somehow we got to the discussion of worst candies. Do you know what Necco wafers are?
Yes.
They're basically sidewalk chalk. My son plays with sidewalk chalk every day. I could buy him a pack of Necco wafers, and they would... Times change, I'm sure. In the 1860s, those were the best treats you can find.
Yeah.
But we were, it was a pandemic, and we had, I live in like a cul-de-sac area, so all of our neighbors would just kind of sit out in our parts, and we talk, what kind of 5-pound bags of candy off Amazon can we have delivered to our neighborhood? And somehow we came across Necco wafers, and we're like, why were those ever?
They're kind of like the Valentine's Day candy.
Yeah. But they're way thinner though, right?
Yeah.
Like the hearts are kind of like they got a little girth to them, but I don't understand. And I want to say they're local.
Really? Yeah.
I believe like Massachusetts, maybe.
Yeah.
So I love New England. I don't want to be throwing some shade at local candy, but they're awful.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I haven't had those in years. I don't care for the Valentine's Day candy. I mean, there's a few of them I really like, but then there's ones in the Valentine's Day packs that are just, like.
Now, what about the difference between like Smarties and Valentine's Day? Because I like Smarties.
Smarties, I'm trying to remember what
they're
Smarties
like they're like a little roll, and they're different. They're kind of like chalk, but they taste better than the.
Yeah, Smarties. Oh, and they're in the little package.
Yeah, like the little wrapped up
Yeah,
package.
I used to get those. I remember if we behaved in Market Basket as kids, drop the nickel in, you could take one.
But those are way better.
Yeah, I don't mind those.
I don't know how the science works between the two.
They are very similar candies, that's for sure. Jesse Martino, the host.
This guy's trouble. Of the French-Canadian Legacy podcast.
Yeah, which he needs to promote himself.
He needs to do a better job.
But he's working hard. We know he's working hard. What are your thoughts on Italian pork pie?
This is a very inside reference that I'm glad he brought up. We did a pork pie challenge video with our friend Fender, who you know, local wrestling enthusiast as well. And Fender was like, "Oh, I've never had pork pie." So Jesse was like, "Oh, you're the best judge. You've hit all the qualifications." So we start recording. And Jesse's like, "Oh, have you ever had pork pie?" And he goes, "Well, I've never had French pork pie, but I've had Italian pork pie." So we don't know what Italian pork pie is. We don't know why he didn't come clean with us originally. But Fender, you're on notice.
Fender, he needs to be in that seat someday. We need to get Fender on the show.
100%. No one could let freedom ring better than Fender.
Jesse also wants to know, what is one thing the donkey host, he loves that word donkey.
It's his thing.
The donkey host of the podcast messed up that made you the most mad?
I can't think of anything that made me the most mad that he's done. He's very good for being as bad at technology as he is. He doesn't make huge mistakes. I have to walk him through a lot of stuff. But one thing, it didn't make me mad, but it was just like, how did we do this? When COVID first hit, we put together a COVID episode, and I can't remember if it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We were recording every 15 minutes for like 8 hours a day. It ended up being 3 parts. I want to say we interviewed 40 people in like 10-minute chunks, and it was just like, we'd interview the person for 10 minutes. I would edit that interview in the 5-minute in between we had, and then we'd interview another person. Then I'd edit. So because I never wanted to fall behind, because the idea of having like 40 episodes to edit is intense. So I was recording, editing, and this is when we started recording apart from each other, because we used to record in my basement.
Yeah.
But with COVID, we're it was COVID.
Trying to make the best of it, yeah.
So we interviewed almost every single guest we've ever had on the show up to that point, and some just like friends of the show. Your brother was interviewed. And it was just, I can't believe we pulled it off, but it was just that edit, record, edit, record, edit, record. We had one of them where our target demographic's skews a little older. And we interviewed somebody that could only be on phone. So I was holding a phone to the microphone. Jesse was like on his computer, and they couldn't always hear each other, so I'd have to repeat his question and then repeat Jesse's answer. And so that it didn't make me mad, but it was just like, Jesse, this was a ridiculous idea.
You've asked me to do a lot here.
Because he originally, I want to say he pitched it as like, I'm going to just interview a few people. And then he's like, hey, man, I got us booked for the whole entire weekend.
Oh, my God.
But it was a great episode. I mean, it's probably very dated now. You don't want to go back and listen because it was, I want to say it was the end of March. So it was right when it started, right when the lockdowns were happening. But that was intense, Jesse. Please don't ever interview 40 people in 3 days again.
Now, how did Jesse come about asking you to do all this originally?
So we met each other through wrestling. Through Alex
brings people together.
Gatzoulis, as also a former Freedom Ringer, I believe multiple time.
Two-time guest.
Two-time Freedom Ringer. And he was like, hey, can I invite my friend Jesse? He also likes wrestling. So back in the medieval times when you'd have to order each pay-per-view for $60.
God, that was ridiculous. I can't
if you wanted the HD version, remember that? Call your cable provider. So we would all go in like $10 each to watch the pay-per-views. And that's how I got to know him. And we had always talked about doing a wrestling podcast. And then he was like, one day he's like, hey, want to do a podcast? And I'm like, well, I don't exactly know how to do everything about it, but I've been wanting to get back into editing. Because I went to school originally for editing.
Okay.
I have an associate's in television and video production, and then I switched to English because, that's where the money is, in an English degree.
Our guest last week had an English degree too.
So he was like, well, I found this public access station that'll teach us up in Concord, and we're gonna do a podcast. So I was like, oh, is it a wrestling podcast? He's like, no, it's gonna be about French Canadians that immigrated to America, and we're telling their stories. And I was like, let's do it, because Campbell is my last name, but my mother's side was all
French Canadian.
All French Canadian.
What was her maiden name?
Bissonnette.
Okay. Yeah, we learned more. I mean, Tim really got into it. We always had the last name Bollier, and then he just started getting into it. Then Jesse did, and. It's cool though.
The water cooler story that cemented all of our lives.
It's cool though because I always took so much pride in being Irish, but that's one part of it. It's one side of it. My mom, her mom's main name was Ryan, but I think it's getting cool again to wave that Quebec flag.
It is, and I mean the Irish. They knew how to promote. That's St. Patrick's Day.
It's huge.
Everyone's Irish on St. Patrick's Day, they say. But let's get St. Jean Baptiste Day, because that used to be celebrated in Nashua and other cities. Maybe one day it'll be back.
Yeah, no, let's hope so. And I think Jesse and you you guys are doing a lot of the legwork to make that happen.
It's all Jesse.
Yeah. Monique also wants to know one last question. Who is your favorite Martino sibling? Be honest.
Well, at one point, I only knew of one Martino sibling. I've lived so much of my life in darkness of just this Jesse-ness.
Yeah.
And then Monique, a shining beacon in the storm. We actually had a big our 1 year anniversary we had with Monique, and we were actually interviewed by someone, me, Monique, Jesse, telling our story. And so I'm sorry, Monique, I still gotta go with Jesse, the wrestling bonds, the podcast bonds, but you were like 1B. I mean, it's they're basically the same.
Yeah. No,
1A and 1B.
I knew Jesse first. I mean, I did the Tough Rock with Monique and didn't know her. And then she looked back at the picture. She goes, "Oh, you're right there. I'm right there," and the group picture of it. But she's got a lot of energy. She's a hoot. So, Monique, big shout out to you. Thanks for the questions. Let's get into sports. Big deal. Not last night, night before. The Milwaukee Bucks have won the NBA Finals. Giannis, this guy, man, is he one of the most likable athletes out there?
I'm going to defer to you on that one. I am probably the least educated NBA person.
Got it. Yeah.
I'm not a fan, but I play in an online Madden league, video game league, and one of the old commissioners lives near Milwaukee, and so I follow him on social media, and he has never been happy. I've heard of the guy before because of like how popular he is through the social media and stuff, but I honestly don't know much about him.
No. Well, big shout out to the Bucks for winning that.
It was the first time in like 50-something years,
yeah, it's
right?
been a very long time.
That's always good. I think as New England fans, we can relate to long times.
We struggled for years. I mean, we were lucky. I think we were young considering when we started winning.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, because I said it on Facebook, and I get some flack, I'm not a big Michael Felger fan of 98.5 The Sports Hub. I know that Soapy and Dan Morris have them on their podcasts and stuff. So I just said, I don't listen to 98.5 anymore because I think their takes are too hot. But I know Felger must be celebrating this because he's, you know,
I used to listen a lot to 98.5, but I kind of fell off when Beetle went to work with Zoe. Was it?
Yeah.
Now he has like a show with him.
Yeah.
Because he used to be with.
He's
with
like
Felger,
midday,
right?
Yeah,
he
he's like the midday guy.
He used to be their like assistant or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he got his own thing, and that's when I kind of fell off of it. It was right around when Bryce was born. I stopped listening to it, but yeah, I bet he is very happy. Their takes are just takes to be takes.
Yeah, and that's why they're so popular. I didn't like what he said about Roy Halladay when he died. What Roy Halladay did was completely stupid, but Felger made such a mockery of it right away that it put a very bad taste in my mouth, and I have not really supported the show since. So, how'd you become a Liverpool fan? Because that's a big thing for you.
Yeah, you can. I thought I'd wear the hat to support it. So, how I originally became a Liverpool fan, I've always been sort of into soccer. Like, I was never a big, like in high school, I was always a drama kid. And I've always loved like theater and stuff. And baseball was my number one sport for a lifetime. It was like the one thing me and my dad agreed on. But I always kind of liked soccer. I remember, I want to say it was 94 when the World Cup was in the U.S.
Yes.
And I remember there was like kind of a resurgence in it.
I had a poster from that.
Yeah, and like the little dog was like the mascot. I remember having the pin for it in like a T-shirt. So I always kind of followed it. And so whenever the World Cup came up every 4 years, I'd always watch it, as many games as I could. And like MLS, I brought a couple of hats here to overthrow your toy collection. We got the Montreal Impact. Now it's like Club Foot de Montreal and the New England Revolution. But the Premier League's like the apex of like soccer. And that's the European league. So I went to Switzerland with my girlfriend, now wife, in, I want to say it was like 06. And there was this big festival happening in Zurich, and everywhere you went, you saw signs for Carlsberg, probably the best beer in the world. And we just, with a tagline like that, it's so confident. Yeah. The confidence was a rate. And so I was like, so we always laughed about Carlsberg, and that was kind of like a running joke for us. And then I was just like tuning into the Premier League, and Liverpool, their jersey sponsor at a time was Carlsberg.
Okay.
So my wife got me like a jersey as a present, and I was like, I'm going to start following Liverpool. And it was only, even now I'm still like a filthy casual compared to like the true like.
So what do they call them, soccer hooligans?
Yeah, the hooligans over there. But I watched every game last year. A couple years ago, the NBC Sports picked up the Premier League, so now it's easy for Americans to watch every Premier League game, and you can. It's on Peacock as well, which is their new like streaming service. But of course, the earliest games at like 7 a.m. our times. So you got to be committed. But then, actually, I don't know if you know, but the Fenway Group bought Liverpool. I don't know how many years ago, like 8 years ago.
It's got to been a while.
It's been a while. And so John had like they brought championships to the Red Sox. So as much as I disagree with some of their takes, you got to be a fan. So that was like even solidified it a little bit more. Of course, they're hated in England. The American owners of because Manchester United, I also believe, is owned by an American, and they're not the fans are not fans of them.
Yeah.
They make it clear that it's the fans of the team, or the fans of the team, not the owners. But I don't know. I just, other than baseball, I think soccer is like my second favorite sport.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest soccer guy. But I'll dabble in the World Cup sometimes.
Yeah, World Cup is a blast, and it's coming back in was it next year? So it's 2026. It'll be in the U.S.
Oh, really?
Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. are co-hosting it. Gillette's scheduled for games. Me and my buddies are already buying tickets. You should come along.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
It's going to be a disaster. Like
depending on who's
Cup
there,
game.
because I remember in '94, I forget what country it was. Guy scored on his own goal and they killed him.
Oh yeah. Even in the Euro, so there was just a huge Euro tournament between all the European countries, and Italy won it. England actually made it to the final, so I was cheering for them. France actually let me down. I put a wager on France. They let me down. Podcast still going though. But there was just a big, huge tournament, and someone scored on their own goal. Like, he kicked it back to the goalie, and the goalie was just not ready for it. Because you're always supposed to kick it back to the goalie at an angle, so where it won't go in the goal. And this guy didn't, and it went in the goal. And
that's got to be like the worst feeling.
Yeah, I can't imagine you're going back to your country.
Yeah. Like, all right, I'm moving. Olympics are coming up. I don't know where I kind of, with everything COVID going on right now in Japan, I don't know if this is the greatest idea. They're not going to have fans.
No fans.
But just do you have a favorite Olympic moment?
So, I've got to say the '96 games in Atlanta.
That's the one I always go to first.
Yeah. I mean, I was 14. I remember we used to get the TV Guide subscription. They would send us like the little magazine, and they had like this pullout of like when all the events would be televised, and I was like mark it. I was like, Mom, we get to watch all these games. And I remember staying up watching Carrie Strug.
That's one that sticks out in my head
like
too.
The women's gymnastics.
Because I had a crush on like all of them.
Yeah, I had a crush on Dominique Moceanu.
Yes.
And she actually, I want to say she solidified the gold medal, and Carrie Strug put them over the limit.
And she was hurt.
Like, no, well, when she landed, she hurt her, and you get the famous But Muhammad Ali lighting the cauldron,
and I remember the torch ran through Nashua.
Yep. Yeah. The torch runs the relays are always amazing. But yeah, him lighting walking the final way and lighting the torch, and it shot up and lit the torch. Do you remember Michael Johnson with the gold shoes?
Yep.
And then even now, like Usain Bolt, like the 100-meter dash. Like, how can you? It's like the fastest 10 seconds of their lives, and they've been training their whole entire lives for this. I don't know. There's a lot of the Olympics are corrupt.
Yeah.
The World Cup is corrupt. But it's the stories you hear of the athletes. Like, it always that gets dusty whenever they tell the stories. And the Winter Olympics, the Summer Olympics, I've loved them all my life. My wife and I went to the U.S. skating championships when it was in Boston, and then the Olympics were 3 weeks later. So it was cool to see the people competing on the U.S. aren't the heavy hitters in the skating anymore.
Yeah.
The Russians have taken over, but I don't know. And just all the random events you can watch. Have you ever watched trampoline?
No.
These people going up 10 feet up in the air. I don't know how but it's ridiculous. And the little, I don't know. I just love just tuning in curling. When I was up in college watching curling.
Yeah, I remember that
the
started
Winter
being
Olympics.
a big thing. Yeah.
I don't know. It just shines a light on all these random sports. Of course, there's basketball, there's soccer. The U.S. women's team are there because the men weren't good enough to qualify. But it's just these random events you can watch, and Michael Phelps just dominating, and it's just, I don't know. I love the Olympics. I can't say it's the perfect, or even maybe it might not even be a good organization, but I love it.
And I agree with the Carrie Strug. I've always loved the dream teams. Obviously, the 92.
The McDonald's Cups?
Yeah. Until finally in 2004, I think the basketball, we finally took it to bronze in Athens, and I remember being we dominate. This is embarrassing.
Well, have you been following they've lost the last two games?
I have not been following.
The U.S. team has lost the last two.
But now they should have
matches.
They should have everybody now.
They should have every now, but I think they had the majority of people when they lost.
Oh well, that'll be interesting. Because I remember
maybe they'll pick it up.
92, 96, these just dominant teams.
The dream, the concept. Once they allowed, I don't I didn't follow back then as closely, but they wouldn't let pros in back then. It's
Yeah.
mostly amateurs in the Olympics. But when they let the floodgates, and they were winning like by 100 points, weren't they? Like
the '92 Dream Team. To see Larry Bird play with Michael Jordan.
Yep.
Players that were just like, because basketball was amazing then. To see these guys play on the same team was like crazy.
Yeah.
Against, amateurs.
Yeah, basically it was just.
But I totally.
But the McDonald's cups, I remember
Yeah.
the fancy cups you could get at McDonald's with all the players on them and stuff, and
that was.
I forgot about the Dream Team. That
was awesome times. Favorite sports moment?
I mean, Dave Roberts stealing second. Like
Yeah.
the whole entire world knows he's running.
Yeah. That was unbelievable.
Oh my gosh, yeah, because the year before, for Game 7, I had tickets to see Eric Idle, a member of former Monty Python, in Burlington, Vermont. And a friend came up to college to go see it, and we're like, we've got to watch Game 7. And then Aaron Boone.
I was in a Hooters and was destroyed that night. People were taking the stools and just like, no, I'm taking this.
So I had also might have partaked in a few beverages that night.
Yeah.
And I remember it was on like Fox, and it was like a late cut. So the pitch was already like in the air. Wakefield had already thrown the pitch when they cut to it. And you just see the swing, and it just, no question. And yeah, I ended up throwing up my computer monitor off my friend's RV onto a rock.
Oh, gosh.
So from that day on, I don't drink during the baseball playoffs anymore because, the Game 4, the steal, I remember calling my friend up after Game 3, and he's like, I was like, hey, you want to come up and watch Game 4 and just like cry? And he's like, they're dead. We're not. Just don't even speak to me anymore. Like, don't even mention them anymore. And then before Game 7, I called him up. He's like, I'll be up later tonight. Like,
it was unbelievable.
Everyone knows he was stealing, and it was Kevin Millar that got the hit, right?
That tied it up?
No, that got, and then did they replace?
Oh, yeah, he came in to run.
Yeah, he came in to run, and Kevin Millar's the worst. Like, I'll say it. I did not like Kevin Millar, but oh my gosh. But Dave Roberts stealing that base, I mean.
Unbelievable, something that will never be duplicated because they were down 3-0, and I will say, after 0-3, if when you lose the big game, whether in sports, as a fan, it feels like the next season's like years away, when it's really not.
Yeah.
But couple things is we want to get into blank versus blank. CM Punk coming to AEW. Looks like it's done deal. You ready to see him back in wrestling?
He's coming to. I thought it was WWE.
No, AEW's looking from the rumors.
CM Punk to AEW.
They're saying that he signed.
I also heard Bryan signed. Have you heard those rumors too?
Heard that too. So I'm waiting to see like an announcement before I believe it. But
I would say Bryan before Punk.
They want them both.
I mean that would. So I've fallen off of wrestling. Like I try to watch the pay-per-views. I always watch the AEW pay-per-views. There's less of them than the WWE pay-per-views. But part of, I'm torn. I'd love to see him back. The Summer of Punk, come on, that was the pipe bomb.
Yeah.
Like, come on, who wasn't on board for that? That was amazing. Daniel Bryan's run for Mania, incredible. But part of the reason I watch AEW is for new people. Like, I don't want to know these people, and then I want to like Darby Allin. I didn't know who that was. Freshly Squeezed, didn't really know him before. Kenny Omega. Of course everyone knows Kenny Omega, but I didn't watch Japan, New Japan very much, so I finally got to see him, Young Bucks, all these indie guys. Of course I'm gonna watch it. CM Punk, Daniel Bryan.
I think CM Punk.
I'm gonna watch it.
You roll him out. It's been now.
Has he been training?
Years?
I know he's a movie star now. He's in indie horror movies all the time.
All you gotta do is give him a mic, and everybody's gonna want to watch. They're gonna be like, "What is this guy gonna say after 7 years?" Obviously, he said things on podcasts, so I don't know.
I'd love to see AJ too. Do we get AJ as well?
Probably at some point. I mean, it seems like Tony Khan has no. He is Ted Turner, but with a brain.
Hopefully.
If he starts giving guaranteed contracts, now we're gonna get and creative control. I don't think he's doing that. Because I think WCW, obviously the merger of AOL Time Warner killed them, but guaranteed contracts, creative control, destroyed the company.
Yeah.
These are the workers. The workers don't get to tell you what they want to do. You need to tell them the plan, you know. But anyways.
I mean, love to see it. I mean,
I agree.
I loved him.
I want to get into top fives. Do you have a top 5 movies?
Back to the Future. I'm going to cheat and call all of them.
Yeah, it's fine. We allow it.
Obviously, the first one's the best. I love 3. I love 2. I love them all. Moulin Rouge.
Okay.
Movie musical. Forrest Gump.
Love it.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
I've never seen it, but
Oh my
need
gosh.
to.
It's, you know, it just came at the right time. Like, I had experienced a huge breakup and stuff. But, oh my gosh, Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet. I love it. And I have like a set top 5, but I'm going to throw in the movie Arrival.
Okay.
Which was a few years ago. Denis Villeneuve, a Quebec director. Have you seen that?
I have.
It's kind of about like aliens coming to Earth and trying to like communicate with them. Is like the basic story, but there's this underlying story of this lady like and her child, and it hit like a little bit after Bryce was born. So like movies like Inside Out and all these parent movies now hit completely different. And I don't know if it's as popular as like the other movies I've said, but if you haven't seen Arrival, definitely check it out. It's not The Arrival with Charlie Sheen from the 90s.
Okay.
Which is also, it's fine.
Yeah.
But Arrival, yeah.
I'll have to check that out because, I mean, most alien movies always are trying to take over.
This is not that. This is, and it's not like, if you think alien movie, it's not action. It's very slow. It's kind of time manipulation, like kind of like Eternal Sunshine. It's not a linear story. But oh my gosh, it really it hits.
So check it out. Top 5 favorite TV shows.
Well, I've preached to you this, The Wire.
I did see season 1.
Oh my gosh, The Wire.
It didn't make me go, this is better than Sopranos, though. I will say that.
I think it's better than Sopranos. Season 5 isn't perfect, and their main storyline is a bit of a reach from where they went. But I love The Wire. It is so good.
So many crossover actors from Oz, which is one of my other favorite shows.
Yep. And Office. There's Stringer Bell.
Yeah.
Is in The Office for a little bit. Lost. I have to say Lost. It hit when I was in college. I was doing the message boards. I made a lot of internet friends that I still talk to today. Yeah. I remember reading books because they mentioned it on the TV show. What other shows are my favorite? I'll probably have to throw The Office in. You can put The Office on. I listened to the Office Ladies podcast with Jenna Fisher.
She's on a podcast
and Angela
now?
Kinsey. They recap every episode and tell like behind the scenes stories. Wow. That has to be one of them. Probably Friends. I know it's like there's a big like it's you either like Seinfeld
I can
or
sometimes
you like Friends.
throw Friends on and enjoy
but
it.
Friends is really good. And then I'm gonna do another tie: Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Okay.
I think
they're kind of the same, the same story.
It's like a prequel. I think Better Call Saul might be better than Breaking Bad, and Breaking Bad's like one of the best shows. It's like they're like, oh hey, we're gonna do a spin-off with Saul. Oh, that's not gonna be good at all.
Guy's a great actor.
But oh my gosh, Bob Odenkirk. If you haven't seen Mr. Show from HBO, like back in the late 90s, my gosh, that is. But Better Call Saul, I think the final season's like filming now. So.
I could see that being a hit, and I fell off on Breaking Bad. I never went back, and I need to do that.
And if you need a new short comedy show, I Think You Should Leave on Netflix. Have you checked that out?
No.
It's called I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson. They're all about like 16 minutes, and it's kind of like absurdist comedy, but it's hilarious. Oh, it's so funny.
All right, and last part of top 5, because I definitely want to get into blank versus blank. Top 5 Broadways.
Rent, Les Mis, Hamilton.
Oh, I know a lot of people love that.
You gotta do Hamilton.
I need to see it because I didn't know it was like rap in there.
Yeah, it's hip hop history musical. Like, who wouldn't love it? And it's on Disney Plus. There's a recorded version of it. You can see the original cast. Music Man, which is like my classic one. And I'm not a religious guy, but I love the musical Jesus Christ Superstar.
I am a religious guy, but I do love like that. My brother Tim used to play that a lot, and it would freak me out. Especially the bad guys in it.
Yeah, there's so many incarnations of it, but the music it's phenomenal.
It's so I don't know when that came out, but
it's like the 70s. So it was originally at a rock opera. Andrew Lloyd Webber imagined it in arenas.
Yeah. We need him.
We need him crucified.
That's all. All right, let's get into Blank versus Blank. Those are some great ones. Definitely look them up.
And most of them have film versions of them that you can see from home. So
yeah, I've definitely. It's been a while since I've seen Jesus Christ Superstar. As being a religious kind of guy, it freaks me out a little bit. I will admit, but it is wonderful. This one's a waste. But I'm going to start with it. Cats or Rent?
Well, Rent. Cats is I don't like.
Freaked
Cats.
Me out.
Yeah, there's commercials. There was they made the movie too. Did you see any of the new movies?
No, I had no interest.
It's a nightmare. I saw the trailer, and it exceeded expectations of how bad it was. I was like, this movie cannot be this bad. And they were like, you want to bet? Well, here you go. It is a nightmare.
There's got to be some diehard fans of this.
Oh, it was one of the longest running musicals of all time.
Okay.
Yeah, it ran for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's family friendly. It's a good introduction to the theater. It's dancing. It's happy music. Nothing really happens. It's a bunch of people dressed up as cats. It'll run for years. And some of the music, Memory, what their show-stopping song, is probably one of the best written songs for musical theater of all time. But the rest of it is just not good.
You can only keep one, Liverpool or the Red Sox.
Oh, you can't do that. Red Sox. My dad, from birth, he would never... He didn't like spending money, so he never had Nessun, so he'd listen to the radio.
I remember those days.
You had to pay for Nessun for the
I can't even believe it was ever that.
Yeah, you'd have to get the cable box. We're not getting no cable box. We could listen to that on the radio. Yeah. So we would listen to it on the radio. But yeah, I love.
It's in our DNA.
It is, yeah. I can go down, it's like a bucket list is to go to Enfield and see a game.
Yeah.
And for Liverpool, but the Red Sox.
AEW or WWE?
AEW. WWE. I don't remember when I found out Santa wasn't real.
Yeah.
But I remember the moment I found out wrestling wasn't real. It was funny. It was on Christmas, and one of my uncles told me, and I was like, "No, it's not."
Yeah.
It's not real. But so WWE's been with me for so long, but they make so many mistakes.
Yeah.
It's the new era, and can you tell me who's challenging for the belts at SummerSlam? Part-timers.
Goldberg.
Yeah. But that could get us Big E's big men slapping meat. I'm sure you've seen that clip.
Because I know Big E loves Goldberg.
Oh yeah,
fan.
He's got a very funny video of his dream match. He's like, "You've got these 60-minute Iron Man matches. No, I want to see a 5-minute big men slapping meat."
Yeah.
Him and Goldberg. But AEW, it's so fresh, and maybe it's because it's so new. But seeing him in Boston, you were there, right?
Yeah.
And that dark match with Kenny Omega, was the hardcore match. Oh my gosh,
the guy who drove was like, "Well, we got to go.
Oh my
I got to teach in the morning."
That was it's AEW.
All right, and this one I ask everybody. More responsible for the success of the 20 years of the New England Patriots, Tom Brady or Bill Belichick?
That I would have to defer to experts. We saw a huge drop-off last year with Tom Brady gone, but who knows? I can't answer that. I think they were just so perfect together at the time. Who's to say?
It's a tough one.
Obviously, you have one of the greatest coaches, one of the greatest quarterbacks. You put them together. Obviously, the magic will happen. Let's see. Cam wasn't healthy last year, right?
No, and
something was up.
It just wasn't a good team, and Brady knew that the team was on a decline.
Yeah.
I got the two toughest ones here.
Okay.
Two people from the Franco-American Center. Tim Bollier or John Toussignon?
Oh, I gotta go Timmy B. Sorry, we've had them both on the both on the show. Both I talked to, but come on, Timmy B. He's my boy.
They both been on my show too.
Yeah.
Both great guys. Final. This is the toughest one.
Okay, I'll brace myself.
And I've said Al. Can you say Al's name again? Al's last name.
Gadzoulis? I believe it's pronounced in Gaddy. I just call him Gaddy.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if that's not it.
Or Fender.
Fender I've known since college, so I got to go with Fender. But it's a funny thing. Like with Gaddy, I don't think I knew Gaddy's real name for the longest time. I didn't know Fender's name for the longest time. I remember
I'm forgetting Fender's real name right now.
Mark Belluardo.
Yes,
I remember he friended me on Facebook, and that was probably the first time I had learned his actual name. And he was in classes with me for years.
That's hilarious. Al didn't go to college with you guys?
No, he was no. I met Al afterwards through a friend of mine that went to college, Brian. They played rugby together.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Well, Mike, I really appreciate you coming on the show. This has been a blast.
It was a blast, too. Thank you for having me.
I'd love to do a show with you and Jesse at some point.
That would be... I've already signed off on it. So French Canadian Legacy, one last time.
French Canadian Legacy podcast. Check it out. It's a huge hit.
There's tens of listeners.
I've seen how many. I mean, I know how many views Jesse gets when he comes on my show. So, just everybody out there, keep your heads up. If you're asked to wear a mask, just wear it. And Soapy pre-op. We're getting very close. I don't know what's going to go down this wedding. You probably should stay away from me. If you don't, I'm going to make you pay. But until next time, let freedom ring.